The Indianapolis Colts are going up against the New York Giants on New Year's Day. But first, with the news out of Las Vegas, should the Colts pursue Derek Carr? Well, let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, brought to you by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here by my esteemed colleague at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, how you doing, man? It's just been a couple days since we last spoke here on the show, but boy, it seems like we always have a lot to talk about. So how you doing, man? Got any plans for New Year's this upcoming weekend?
Oh yeah, there's definitely going to go. Me and Aubrey are going to go up north, and I think it's going to be around Southern Michigan. Going to hang out with some of our friends and do a New Year's Eve party. But as far as work's been pretty good. Things are starting to slow down a little bit, so I'm ready for a relaxing weekend, and I'm ready for some more Colts football. Believe it or not, I'm ready.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the wife and Danny are gonna go up to South Bend again this weekend. Go see your family, watch some college football. That's always fun to do. Bring in the new year the right way. And then, of course, on Sunday, we've got a Colts game to watch. But first, before we talk about anything Colts, guys, like I start off every episode, like I end every episode, please, if you haven't already, please go ahead and follow us on all the things. Go and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow Horseshoe Huddle at Colts on FN on Twitter. And then, of course, subscribe. Please. It really does mean the world to us. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I are going live. And let's get into it. We already have quite a few people in the chat. Wyatt Law, pursue Carr? Absolutely not. So we're gonna get into that. And then, of course, the honorary third host of this show, Stats Matt, says, "I'll be at Indy." Well, good for you, man. Enjoy Naptown. Go ahead and see Circle Center Monument. That's where the wife and I got engaged, and then see the Mecca, Lucas Oil Stadium. But Drake, without further ado, let's get into it. So the big news of the week was the Las Vegas Raiders decided to bench Derek Carr, a quarterback that they just gave a 3-year, $121 million extension to this past offseason. And it's come out that Derek Carr has gotten permission from the Raiders to leave the team for the final 2 weeks. He doesn't want to be a distraction for this team because technically the Raiders, and this is what I think what makes it even more shocking to me, is technically the Raiders are still eligible to go to the playoffs. They still have a chance to make it into the postseason, and then they bench their starting quarterback, which is just, we don't normally see that when your team is fighting for it. So, of course, when there's a veteran quarterback on the market, the team that's always linked to them, at least for the past few seasons, is the Indianapolis Colts. So, Drake, I ask you, and what we're going to start off the show talking about tonight. Hopefully, people in the chat, let's hear your thoughts as well.
Oh yeah, light it up. Seriously.
Should the Colts pursue Derek Carr? Drake, what do you think?
You know, there's it's really even keel. It's really down the middle, and I think one of the biggest reasons he wants out of there is because of the potentially just a bad relationship with Josh McDaniels. There's a really good chance that that's the reason, because you got Devontae Adams there, came there for Derek Carr, looked pretty good statistically, but we can definitely get into the do's and don'ts because it's for me, it's right down the middle. It depends on how you want to approach next season entirely.
Right. And there are some arguments for. I mean, he is a guy that has been a pretty solid quarterback over
Oh
the
yeah.
years. And if you want to see my full in-depth analysis on this topic, I had an article today on horseshoehuddle.com of should the Colts go after Derek Carr. And I think there's two schools of thought. If it kind of depends where you view this team. If you view this team as only being a quarterback away, then then you're going to be ready to win now, then sure, you might want to roll the dice on Derek Carr. However, if you think this team is farther along, you might not want to go for another retread veteran quarterback for the fourth season in a row. And it's just kind of, it's a tough situation to be in. And I think what it really encapsulates is how the NFL can change so much in a
Oh,
year. Stats Matt says he feels bad for Carr. I think a lot of us do because Derek Carr is a good person. He truly is. Camden Roberts, good to see you, buddy. Not if we can't get Adams. LL. No, Carr isn't going to take us anywhere. And then Stats Matt again. I see one scenario the Colts could get him and only one. He gets cut. Colts draft a quarterback in the first. Carr signs a 1-year deal, knowing the plan is to be an audition for other teams. And I feel like that'd be a hard sell for Derek Carr because the Colts aren't going to be the only suitors for Derek Carr if the Raiders do end up trying to trade him, which it looks like is inevitable. But Drake, what are some of the reasons that you think that Derek Carr? I mean, what are some of the reasons for Derek Carr being on the Colts next season?
you know, throughout his career, he's been incredibly solid. I know that the teams have looked really crappy, but you got to keep in mind this guy's had like a bottom of the barrel defense every single year. All right, it's always second, the terrible secondary after terrible secondary after terrible secondary that he has to go out there and try to light the scoreboard up against. And when Gruden was the coach, say what you want about Gruden, he did like to run a smash mouth offense. He wanted to run the ball a lot. He couldn't. The defense sucked too much. So there's a good argument for Carr: 217 touchdowns, 99 interceptions in 142 games, and almost 36,000 passing yards. And again, it remains to be seen how he's going to look with a good to really good defense. And it might also be on McDaniels. Who knows? And he's also, one last thing, he's dealt with all sorts of drama every single year, it seems. And he still was the lead man and played pretty dang good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't agree. Stats Matt kind of backs up what you're saying. Says Carr's never had a defense ranked higher than 20th, and has a rotating cast of head coaches and offensive coordinators, and that can take a toll, especially when you're put in a position where you have to go out there and put up 25 to 30 points a game just to win. When you're going to do that, or when you're expected to do that, I don't care who you are, unless you're otherworldly like a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady and his Patrick Mahomes, someone like that. It's hard to do. And while Derek Carr is probably a solid quarterback, he's not in that upper echelon, I would say, of elite quarterbacks in this league. Richard Horton, good to see you back, buddy. Absolutely not. They have gone down this horse trail far too many seasons. I like the pun there,
Yeah,
but
of course.
it's interesting, and I think once we kind of get into what our final thoughts are on this issue, we'll be able to lay it out. But a season ago, I wrote a piece saying that if Carr was available last offseason, the Colts should absolutely pull the trigger. They really should. I thought that Carr would be able to step in, run this offense well behind a solid offensive line, the top rushing attack in the league, and a really good defense. And I think Carr would have been able to thrive. Obviously, a lot has changed since then, and this Colts team looks so much different and has played much different than any of us would have ever thought. So, Drake, what are kind of your cons for Derek Carr coming to the Colts next season?
Well, some of the cons is he has had some weaponry that he still can't seem to sometimes get I mean, he's never really like ascended to like you said, the upper tiers. I don't even think he has more than 30 touchdowns on a season. He's usually not putting up ridiculously high numbers. He takes care of the football though. That's mostly his thing. Maybe a little bit of a higher Alex Smith like guy. He's going to take care of the football. So maybe you want someone more explosive. And also, he has thrown career high interceptions, the same number, 14 and 14 in the past 2 seasons. And we didn't used to see him do that again. Might be a product of McDaniel's offense, but we might be seeing regression already. So, I mean, he's looked pretty rough this year. His stat line is a lot more, it'll fool you into thinking he might have done better. So,
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree there, and that's the big sticking point. One of the big sticking points with me is you've got Devonte Adams out there, you've got Hunter Renfro, you've got
yep.
Darren Waller. Obviously, you can't call the plays like Josh McDaniels is the one doing. Derek Carr can't go out there and play defense, and we all know that the Raiders' defense is putrid. But at the same time, he leads the league in interceptions, only 24 touchdowns, And when you have weapons like that, you would expect somebody to play better. Now, I mean, we could talk about Michael Pittman Jr. and how we think he's a very good wide receiver, and no offense to Michael Pittman, but he's not Devontae Adams.
No.
And Alec Pierce and Jelani Woods have shown great upside. Alec Pierce isn't Hunter Renfrow. Jelani Woods is not Darren Waller. So there's going to be a drop in weapons if Derek Carr does come to the Colts. Combine that with an offensive line that is struggled most of the year. They've been better in the second half. They really have been. But at the same time, it's not nearly what it was even a season or two ago, and that still has to be addressed this offseason. Stats Matt says that it smells like the New York Jets to me. I think that I was kind of mentioning that this afternoon.
Okay.
Talking with some people that the Jets, if they're just think that they're a quarterback away, Derek Carr could be the answer. Steve, good to see you, man. Absolutely not. I don't want a player that walks out on his team. And he says that Carr is a bad idea. I want the Colts to draft Levis and sit him a year behind another veteran. So what Steve was talking about is because Carr requested to kind of leave the team or go away from the team, and I do kind of get that, because we saw this same situation this year with the Colts and Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was benched, and he came in there. He answered every question from the media, and he did it with grace. And it was just kind of shows the leader and the stand-up guy that Matt Ryan is. Now, obviously, we're not in Las Vegas, don't know exactly what is going on there, but it is something to kind of think about. Camden comes back saying our coaching staff isn't good enough to help Carr and honestly develop to help a young, new quarterback. So with a new coach staff and offensive lineman, he might be a good fit, but that's a big if. And again, that's a huge if. We don't know at this point who is going to be the head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. Is it going to be Jeff Saturday again? Is it going to be Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, D'Amico Ryans, Ken Dorsey? We don't know. And that is what's going to be so critical, not only for this team moving forward, but for whoever is playing quarterback for this team, whether it is Carr, whether it is Will Levis, another rookie, a different someone else. The staff that is put around in the situation here in Indianapolis is going to really dictate the level of success that quarterback is going to have. Stats Matt said, I'm not so mad about him not being in the building, and some reports are saying that the Raiders suggested it. Okay. And that very well could be. Like I said, we are not there in Las Vegas, so you hate to really say if a guy walked out on his team or not when you don't have all the details. But fine, basically to put a bow on this topic, Drake, should the Colts pursue Derek Carr? Yes or no, and why?
I think that look, it's very hard for me because one, I've got him in fantasy, and they benched him. Okay, so no, that
yeah, I'm right there with you.
That doesn't matter right now. I love Derek Carr, I really do. I've always been a huge fan of him, and just like you, I wanted him on this team. I wanted him on this team last year. I thought it would have been a great move, perfect move. They didn't want Wentz. I thought Carr would have fit in way better. At this point, though, with the Colts, I think that more than just a veteran quarterback is needed. You need to do a little bit of moving around, maybe some tearing down. I think the Colts need to get off of the veteran train, and I think that they do need to get and invest in a young quarterback in the draft, and it's time.
Yeah, I would agree there, and I think obviously we've talked all about the different situation, pros and cons, but there's three big reasons why Derek Carr should not be a member of the Colts next year. Number one is the contract. If the Colts trade for Derek Carr, he's going to be owed $39 million next year. Well, he only has
that.
You add that to the fact that Matt Ryan is going to be, whether the Colts trade or cut Matt Ryan, they will be on the hook for $18 million for Matt Ryan. They'll save 17.2, but the dead cap hit on Matt Ryan is $18 million. The only way that does not happen is if Matt Ryan retires. That would save the Colts close to $30 million, and they would only take like a $6 million cap hit. But I think at this point, if we're thinking logically here, that's a pipe dream, because if you're Matt Ryan, yes, you probably should retire, but you have $18 million guaranteed sitting right there for you that if you don't retire, you are going to get regardless. The only way he doesn't get that money is if he retires. And if it don't matter if he plays for a team or not, you could put it off if you want, get that 18 million. Yes, he's made 269 million throughout his career, but at the same time, 18 million is still a lot of money. So that's not going to happen. The Colts, if they take on that Derek Carr contract, that means you're going to be out of the running to sign Bobby Okereke. I don't even know if he does come back.
Yeah.
You probably kiss Paris Campbell goodbye. Yannick Ngakoue probably isn't back. It's going to be very hard to address the holes on this team if you're paying one quarterback $39 million and you're paying another one $18 million just to not even be on your team. So that right there makes it very difficult. The second, we kind of already talked about it. This Colts team is not a quarterback away.
Yep.
This Colts team needs help on the offensive line. Could probably use some upgrades in the weapons. Who knows what's going to happen with the defense and some turnover there. It's not a team that's just a quarterback away from competing for a Super Bowl like we all thought it was in the spring. So does Derek Carr move the needle? No. In fact, Derek Carr probably keeps he'll probably improve the team, but then you're kind of sitting again in quarterback purgatory. So where you're just good enough to not have a good draft pick, but not good enough to really compete for a Super Bowl. And then finally, like you said, it's time. The Colts have the 5th pick in the draft, the highest they've picked since they took Andrew Luck, number 1 overall, back in 2012. It's time to draft your young quarterback. Whether you start him week 1 or not isn't really relevant here, because if you're not going to start him week 1, you can have another veteran that you sign for cheap that will bring him along slowly. Or if he even does start week 1, you can have a veteran back him up. Somebody that will come in like Andrew Luck had Matt Hasselbeck. The Colts could go out there and sign one of those guys to be that for them and be the veteran mentor for a young rookie quarterback. So I think when you look at all of those things, it just doesn't make sense for the Colts. It doesn't make sense for Derek Carr, who would want to go to a team that is ready to win now. And so the two parties just really should not be interested in one another. Now, does Jim Irsay think that? Does Chris Ballard think that?
Yeah.
Who knows at this point? But in my opinion, the two should not be connected and should not be paired in 2023. So let's take a look at what the comments are saying here. Stats Matt saying, hey, I also don't blame him for avoiding McDaniels at all costs. Right there with you, man.
Yep.
Wyatt Law saying that Carr's contract forcing the Raiders to make a quick decision once the Super Bowl is over. It won't drag out for very long. That is true, because the guarantees in his contract happen in February, I'm pretty sure. So something's got to happen there quickly. Steve says that Levis, all the tools, but he's way too raw to start right away. If we invest a year or two, he could be the kid for the future. We'll talk about Levis here down the road, but big fan of Will Levis.
Oh, yeah.
Turbo says, I don't think Derek Carr well it up in the Colts. Sorry to say, but he's going to pick what team he wants and going to a playoff team with a defense. Very could be if he is released.
Yeah.
The Colts probably aren't on his radar. He says Derek Carr is a great quarterback and could win a Super Bowl. I think in the right situation, very, very well could. Steve says keep Ryan and Foles. Let Levis learn from both of them. Trade Sam for other needs or draft picks. I don't know if Foles will even be here, because Foles was here for Frank Reich and Frank Reich only. Frank Reich isn't here, so Foles might retire. Kyle Stewart, if Vegas pays a big chunk of his contract and gives us Rock back, they could have the third from the Wentz trade.
There we go.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice if Rock Ya-Sin wasn't a free agent. So Rock will be testing those waters himself. Derek Carr was set up by Josh McDaniels. Now Josh McDaniels' wish is coming true. He's going to get Tom Brady. That'd be interesting. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
And Stats Matt says about the guarantees that they kick in 3 days after the Super Bowl. Bailey Savage says that the Colts are keeping Matt Ryan and Sam Ehlinger, not Nick Foles, not Derek Carr. Bailey, I can guarantee you Matt Ryan will not be on the Colts roster next season. That's all I have to say. Matt Ryan will not be there. So, but Drake, I think we've talked about Derek Carr enough. We're 20 minutes into the episode.
There's
Let's
so
talk.
much to talk about, right?
There really is, and that this is why this offseason is going to be so fun, so important, and I mean, you guys are going to have to just follow along and join in every week to talk about it with us. So let's move on to the game this weekend. Of course, the very important game this weekend.
Oh yeah, so
I
important.
keep trying to tell myself that anyway. But Colts at the Giants in the Meadowlands, Week 17. Colts are 6-point underdogs as of this afternoon to the Giants. I think that's probably about right. Giants at home, 6-point dogs. If I had to say the Giants might cover, we'll have to see, but it can't be any worse than it was on Monday night, can it, Drake? I mean, the look, especially on the offensive side of the ball, 3 points, barely 0 for 10 on third down. It can't be any worse, right?
I actually listened to our colleagues Jake and Zach do their Locked On episode, and they were talking about exactly what I was thinking. Same thing with Bring the Juice. They were saying the same thing. Why didn't the Colts run the ball more? They were actually moving the ball. Why? I know Jackson had issues with fumbles. Why didn't he get anything though? He's without question the best pass catching back, and Wilkins didn't get used more. They put a lot of it on Foles. They dug themselves a hole early, and the play calling really showed its greenness, if you will. And I mean that by saying Parks Frazier is so dang inexperienced that he did not continue to run the ball and attack that very weak Chargers defense against the run. And that is exactly, again, what the Colts are going to be facing this week. They're 28th in the run. So, I mean, there's a way around this. It's going to be a matter of the play calling, and is Foles going to have a little more chemistry now that he's had 7 days with the first team guys now, as opposed to 0. So,
yeah, you kind of hit one of my keys right on the head there, Drake. They need to run the ball. They don't need to put this all on Nick Foles, as Drake wears it every week.
That's why I wore it. They
run
just
the
don't
damn
do it.
ball.
Maybe I should stop wearing it.
Zach Moss was he wasn't phenomenal against the Chargers by any means, but he ran the ball pretty damn well. He really did. Get Deion Jackson in there more, especially on passing downs. Get him be that third down back and get him out in space where he can really do some damage. But yeah, you're right. The New York Giants are 29th against the run, allowing 145 yards per game on the ground. I mean, if Jonathan Taylor was healthy, this would be an obvious Jonathan Taylor game where you hand it off to him 30 times and let him go to work. But when Jonathan Taylor isn't there, hopefully the Parks Frazier isn't going to put so much pressure on the passing offense, because we saw what happened with Nick Foles last week. It was abysmal. It was probably the worst quarterback play we have seen all year long. It really has been. And so when you have guys like Zach Moss, who's starting to get more familiar in this offense, and a Deion Jackson who's been here all year, just because Taylor isn't out there, don't be afraid to give those guys the ball, especially when you're going up against such a porous rush defense that the New York Giants have.
Well, and you also can't allow Nick Foles to get sacked 7 times, because that is an area where the Giants do have some serious threats. I mean, I can't remember the defensive tackle. He's an absolute monster.
Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, he basically
and Quinnen and Leonard Williams.
Yeah, those guys, I even put it in my predictions piece a while back, which, by the way, has sucked. Thanks, Colts. But one of the things I put is that there's going to be double teams in order to stop Lawrence. There's going to be double teams all over the place, and they just allowed a team that doesn't have Bosa and has a regressing Khalil Mack to destroy them. And so you got to hope, if you're a Colts fan, two things. They're going to run the ball and stay with the ground game with at least 25 carries between whoever, and that Foles has at least a little more chemistry. Because look, Foles he's a below average quarterback. I know he won a Super Bowl. That was long ago. He's a below average guy. If he has some chemistry, maybe they can get something going. But if he doesn't, it could be really bad.
Right. And Stats Matt coming in clutch with this. The Chargers blitz 29% of the time. Giants lead the league at 40%. Foles looked horrible against the blitz. And he did. He flat out looked terrible against the blitz on Monday night. What's a good way to neutralize a blitz and get a team from stop blitzing so much? running the ball and running the ball well. So the Colts will have to do that. Wyatt Law says, I'd love a competitive game against the Giants. Losing is preferable, but please don't humiliate ourselves again. We have do we have veteran leaders on this roster that don't fold like a cheap lawn chair? And I would say on the defensive side of the ball, the effort is there. The defensive side of the ball, those guys are still playing their heart out, particularly DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Stephon Gilmore, Zaire Franklin. You see those guys still pouring their heart and soul all out there, leaving everything on the field. And it's just, can the offense respond? Can the offense play complementary football? Camden says that Monday night was the bottom for our offense. Also, why don't we use our tight ends more and run the ball because the backups can do it? That's something that Drake and I have been talking about for weeks. We would
Thank
love to
you.
see the big 6'7" Jelani Woods get more involved, because as we saw in the first half, the Colts did move the ball at times. Who were they throwing the ball to? Jelani Woods. Kylan Granson has missed the last 2 days of practice. He looks like he probably won't be there out there again. So again, more snaps for Jelani Woods. Keep feeding him the ball and getting him out there. Kurt says that the defense looks exhausted, which is easy to do when they play nonstop. Yes, absolutely right, Kurt.
Yeah.
The defense has been out there way too often. And again, that is on the fault of the offense for going out 3 and out, sending that defense right back onto the field. And it just isn't acceptable. And it's why we've talked about, this defense folds a lot of times in the fourth quarter because they're just gassed.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I actually do have a piece where I said, look, the defense, they've got to stand tall even in the fourth quarter. And a little bit of further analyzing, and you'll realize that this is potentially a worse offense, maybe not, but potentially a worse offense than even the 2012 Colts. I mean, it's even more disappointing because you expected that to happen. You didn't expect all this to happen 3 quarterbacks in, and I do say I really wish that they just would have left Matt Ryan in. I mean, if you're going to switch to Nick Foles, you know, interim coach Saturday, he was trying to give himself the best chance to win. It's probably by switching over to Ellinger, if anything. So just a lot of puzzling moves. And you're just hoping the Colts, again, stick to the run game, get it going, and that there's better chemistry, because that was absolutely pathetic to watch.
Yeah, it really was. So I think we were both agree that if the Colts are really going to stand a chance, they've got to run the ball and run the ball well.
Yeah.
But then moving over to that side of the ball, to the side that's been carrying the Colts all year, the Colts defense going up against Saquon Barkley, who has had a career resurgence and looks like the guy that was taken second overall in that 2018 NFL draft out of Penn State. Saquon Barkley has been killing it on the run. And credit to Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka of this Giants coaching staff for really taking this offense and making it something that can actually go out there and win games. But what do you think, the Colts have a chance of stopping Saquon Barkley, or do you think it's going to be a game where Saquon just gradually wears the defense down?
This is a different type of offense they're facing, because they were facing Kirk Cousins. They were facing Dak Prescott. They were facing explosive offenses. You
Mm-hmm.
stop Saquon, you force Daniel Jones to throw the ball. There's a reason he has 13 touchdown passes on the season. They don't throw the ball very much. They also are
Mm-hmm.
depleted at the receiver position. They're depleted at the tight end position. Saquon leads the team in receptions. Okay. I mean, he is the offense. If you can even trip this man up, you force Daniel Jones to throw that ball 30 or more times, you might see him be the Daniel Jones that we all know, and if you're, unless you're a Giants fan, love. So it's going to be interesting. I think that they do have a chance to stop Saquon, but you always say that, and then you see him skip one tackle, and before you know it, he's in the house with 150 by the fourth quarter.
Right. And the Giants with Saquon Barkley are the sixth ranked rushing team in the NFL, averaging 144.9 yards per game as compared to the Colts here. So the Colts are about middle of the pack in regards to rushing defense. They average giving up 122 yards per game on the ground. So that's where it's going to be. Stats Matt says to better spy Danny Dimes. There's no real
Yep.
receiving threat, so you got to key in on Saquon and a running quarterback, and that is correct right there, because people forget Daniel Jones, while he looks like the second coming of Eli Manning as far as his stature, he can run. He can get out there
Oh
and
yeah.
move. So if you leave him unattended, I wouldn't say you need to spy him on every play, but you need to be aware that Daniel Jones can make plays with his legs. And if you just drop everybody into coverage on third down on a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, Daniel Jones could pick that up and continue to extend drives. But it's really going to be, this game I think is shaping up to be all about the running game. It's going to be a January game. I'm not sure how the weather is supposed to be there in New Jersey, but the Colts are going to try to run the ball. They're going to try to keep it out of Nick Foles' hands. They're going to try to neutralize the blitz of the Giants, and then the other way around, this Giants offense goes as Saquon Barkley does. And when you got the guys, like I said, Buckner and Stewart in the middle, along with Zaire, Okereke, those guys in there that's going to try to really focus on Saquon Barkley and make Daniel Jones beat him.
Yeah, and another thing about Daniel Jones this year is before, and that's just another guy that I've always weirdly liked. I've always thought Daniel Jones has got so much ability, raw talent. There just needed to be one guy to come along and be able to understand how to use him correctly. You have that now, and it's a little bit scary because he's playing efficiently, which is something that we don't usually see from Danny Dimes, which I've never understood that name, but Danny Dimes. And so they also haven't ran much with Jones this season, so he maybe he's a little bit rusty with the running. So it's going to be interesting to see if the Colts, one, can stop Barkley, and two, if they can really force Jones to have to go out there and use his arm, because most of the time he doesn't really have to take shots downfield to Slayton and Robinson and those type of outside receivers. So
yeah. Kurt saying that hope Danny does go off this week for my fantasy league. Hey, especially if you're
oh
playing in a championship, hey, go for it, man.
yeah,
Go for it.
hey, yeah.
Stats what looks like it's Weatherman Matt over here now. 53 to 55, mostly cloudy. Hey, that's pretty good conditions
Yeah,
for
that's not
a
bad.
game. So it doesn't look like weather will be a problem, but we'll have to see. And I think another one of the more interesting storylines is Daniel Jones is in a contract year. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so will they re-sign him? Has he earned that contract? We'll have to see. So but let's kind of wrap things up on the game this weekend. We'll end the show with our bold predictions and keys to victory. Drake, give me a bold prediction for the Colts this weekend. When I'm sitting there covering the game, probably a little bit hungover from New Year's Eve, what's going to surprise me there on Sunday?
So initially, I sent you my notes and I said that Moss will have, bold, 20 carries and 100 yards. And then I thought to myself, it's probably going to be more of a committee.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to change that. I really think Foles is the first man, the first quarterback of the three that, good Lord, you could tell he wanted to pepper Jelani Woods. You could tell he really liked himself, those passes to Jelani Woods until he gave it to the breadbasket of the defense. I'm going to switch everything. I'm going to say Jelani Woods has at least 5 catches. He has at
Ooh.
least 50 yards, and he does find the end zone because he leads the team with Paris Campbell in receiving touchdowns.
And that might sound like a large number, but in
It's
reality,
not.
it's 3. It is literally 3.
It is.
But hey, I would love to see a Jelani Woods touchdown. I'm going to go on the opposite side. I'm going to say that the Colts really rely on the running game, and I'm going to say we get a touchdown not only from Zach Moss, but we get a touchdown from Deion Jackson. I think that both running backs score on Sunday. They're gonna rely on that running game, and that the Colts, I think, will at least get a couple scores on this Giants defense. Douglas Williams asks, who will be the Colts quarterback next year? Buddy, if I knew, I would tell you. But I know for one thing, it's not going to be Matt Ryan. It's not going to be Nick Foles. So we can at least eliminate those guys from the equation. StatsMath says that Foles has 3 more INTs.
Oh, geez.
I don't know if that's a bold enough prediction because I could
man.
very easily see that happening.
Yeah.
I really could.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. Drake, what are the keys to victory? How are the Colts going to be able to pull this off? I know a lot of people are looking towards draft position, and that's probably what we're looking at too. If the Colts lose, it's not the worst thing. But what is it going to take for them to beat the Giants on Sunday?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's very simple. It's two things because the defense is middle of the road with the pass, and they're very weak against the run. They blitz a lot, but if you get the ball out, you can take advantage of that blitz. So I think that it's going to be on the defense to continuously monitor Saquon Barkley. You're going to have to keep him around like at least the 120 scrimmage yards range because he catches everything and he runs everything. But I think it's going to be on them to make Daniel Jones throw that ball. You're putting some second rate. No offense to Giants fans, but the good receivers are hurt. So
Mhm.
you're relying on these guys like Darius Slayton to take on Stephon Gilmore. Okay, you're asking them to take on some very, very good safeties, and one of them a rookie. I mean, that make Daniel Jones throw that football. It could be more of a rocky path to victory for the Giants than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, I would agree. I think whichever team runs the ball better and
Yep.
on the ground and more effectively, I think they're the team that's going to have the advantage. Because do you really trust the ball? Do you really trust Daniel Jones to go out there and win you a game? I certainly don't trust Nick Foles to win the Colts a game. So that's going to be whoever is able to produce on the ground, maybe make some timely throws. Does Daniel Jones make some timely throws when they need it? Is Nick Foles able to handle the blitz and pressure better? It's gonna be down to that. Which quarterback can make the fewest mistakes and allow their running game to really go and be successful. Here we go with Canvas says hold the lead, run the clock out, eliminate the 3 and outs, and ask for a miracle. I would agree there. So
Yep.
finally, prediction, Drake. When I guess it'll be 4 o'clock since the game starts at 1 o'clock. When 4 o'clock hits on Sunday, Colts Giants, who comes out on top, and what's your score?
I think it's going to be a battle until the fourth quarter. I'm going to put it on that again. I think that Foles really kind of like Stats Matt mentioned. He struggles too much with the blitz. Maybe your prediction of two different running backs scoring comes true, but I think it's going to be Giants 23. I think it's going to be the Colts are going to get 14, and it's not going to be because the Giants move the ball well, but I think Foles probably has a couple picks.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't see Nick Foles taking care of the football. My bold prediction of each running back getting a touchdown, we'll have to see on that.
There you go.
I think if that does happen, those are going to be the only scores of the game. So, but yeah, I think the Giants again they got so much to play for. I think if they win on Sunday, they clinch a playoff berth, or they will at least be close to locking up a playoff berth. So I am going to go Giants 23 Giants 23, Colts 17, because I think you can't go a game without Chase McLaughlin kicking a field goal in
Money
there.
McLaughlin, let's
Money
go.
McLaughlin. So
I'm going to get his jersey next year.
there you go. Let's see what the comments are saying. So Wyatt Law saying Debbie Downer here. Giants 23, Colts 9. That's very
Yeah.
real. That's not
Yeah,
being
that's
a Debbie
realistic.
Downer,
Yeah.
Wyatt. That's just being realistic, and we
Yeah.
we appreciate that here. Stats Bagel with my same prediction: 23-17 Giants. That's good right there. Douglas says 24-17 Giants. So it's either looking like the Giants are going to cover or it's going to be a push on Sunday, but consensus looks like the Colts will get their 11th loss of the season and the Giants will get the victory at home. So that's going to be it for us tonight. Everybody, thank you so much for joining in to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. Again, if you haven't already, please go follow us on all the things. Go ahead and like us on Facebook at Horseshoe Huddle. Go and follow us on Twitter at Colts on FN. Subscribe on YouTube and hit that little bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live. Because once the season's over, man, things are going to get very, very interesting. So go ahead and follow Drake right there at D Walster Drake. You could go ahead and follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. We will be back here on Monday night to talk to you guys about the Colts, Giants, give our gut reaction to everything that happened, and we will see you Monday night. Have a happy new year, everyone.
Derek Carr.